All right. Thank you very much, Shelley. And Dr. Matt Hanka is an associate professor of political science and a longtime guest analyst here on Eyewitness News. Dr. Hanka, and we might be able to show some video from Ford Center. A very bad week last week for President Trump, at least from the Washington angle of things. But as you see what's happening here in Evansville, more than 11,000 people, presumably all Trump supporters, cheering, and his base, all this negative news really affected him, and his base, I should say.
Well, for those that are gathered here tonight, probably not. Presidents have an incredible platform, and they use and take advantage of leaving Washington to go on campaign-style events, whether it is campaigning for a member of Congress or at their own campaign events themselves. And they take advantage of leaving the noise of Washington and being able to share that message. Trump gets a lot of energy, and we've seen this for a year and a half, and we even saw this in the campaign, of how much energy he gets by being off script. Even when he's in the White House, there's some scripted moments, or certainly not as off the cuff as he is. He's just going to free flow like he's done in a lot of these other.
And he's got teleprompters, from what I understand, tonight from Brandon Bartlett. There are those two glass screens.
And they exist, though, but he will go on teleprompter, off teleprompter. But as you've noticed, there's a lot of him just sort of speaking off the cuff and what's on his mind. And, you know, he might be reacting. I don't know. My sense is this is one of the first campaign events since last week. So he may take advantage of, hey, did you hear what happened last week? And sort of point fingers at the people that have made his week bad last week.
This U.S. Senate race in Indiana is being watched all across the nation. A lot of money is being poured into it from both sides. How critical is an event like this in a race like this? Senator Joe Donnelly, many analysts say he is in danger of losing his seat. Mike Braun came out of the blue. One thing that I saw for the first time tonight, Mr. Braun was not just in his blue shirt, he had a sport coat on.
That's right.
When he greeted the president. But how critical are rallies like this? Can President Trump usually get candidates over that hump by appearing in venues like this?
The fact that you get a presidential endorsement, especially on a venue like this, is key. Mike Braun has had the benefit of having a couple presidential visits from Trump. I think there was one in northern Indiana a few months ago. If it's an official sort of blessing and endorsement, that's key. He needs the support from Trump as much as anybody. And many observers in him see Braun as following the path of Trump and following a lot of that agenda. So it's important that Braun gets the support and that political capital, if you will.
And I was one of the media panelists at the U.S. GOP Senate debate back in April, and all three candidates, Congressman Messer, Mike Braun, and Mr. Rokita, it was almost as though they were trying to out-Trump each other. They were all extremely loyal. The overall GOP, the grand old party, the Republican Party, especially in the U.S. Senate now, how critical is the communication between the president and the congressional leadership in getting things done? Because there are some openly critical Republican senators of the president, and there's a lot at stake, especially in the U.S. Senate races.
The most important relationship that the president has is going to be with the majority leader, which is Senator Mitch McConnell, Kentucky senior senator. Last year, they had a rocky, tense relationship where there were times they weren't necessarily on speaking terms. It's more amicable and friendly now. They communicate regularly by a number of reports. And one indication, this is very indirect, anecdotal, is you're not seeing Trump criticize Senator McConnell. So that's a good sign that he is, you know, working with him and sees him as an important ally, sees him as somebody he shouldn't upset, because Mitch McConnell controls the agenda and controls the flow. So it's symbiotic. Trump is helping McConnell is helping Trump by getting a lot of Trump's judges and a lot of confirmations move through. That has sped up in this year as opposed to last year.
Now, the GOP is trying to get the U.S. Supreme Court nominee hearings going before the election.
Those will happen in September.
And I find this interesting, the fact that Senator Joe Donnelly met with the president, or rather met with Mr. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh, and he has stated publicly he would look at his record, etc., but Joe Donnelly's vote could be very critical before the election. But here, Mr. Trump is basically throwing Senator Donnelly under the bus, which is nothing new from any hard-fought campaign to support Mike Braun. Could that play, how is that going to play on Donnelly's role in these confirmation hearings? It's
a very tricky, fine line that Donnelly has to balance. He is in his campaign ads promoting that, hey, I've worked with President Trump on that Right to Try Act and some other things where he is showing publicly that he is collaborating. But he's going to take a very calculated political risk by trying to, if he shows and supports the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh.
Now, here we're seeing protesters, and this...
Well, that's Edie Hardcastle, who's running for state senate, yes.
Okay, but we have, this is basically several groups have come together. Now, this is one of the larger, from at least our perspective, here in Evansville, protests of a U.S. president. And they're relatively close to Ford Center. You could see them, Ford Center behind them before the camera panned. But these protests, will President Trump even refer to this protest, do you think, in this rally tonight?
Not sure. It's hard to say. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing them everywhere. Every time he goes somewhere, there's a lot of people are very incensed with not just Trump and what he stands for, but how he is carrying himself. That he behaves in a way that other presidents in our lifetime and our memory have not behaved. And that's not political differences, it's a lot of style. You never saw a president, even in the Twitter age, use Twitter to insult opponents, or this person didn't like me, this person didn't say this nice thing about me, and so on and so forth. And so, he might not know that they're there, and but it's people that he's probably more in contact with. So if he gets a slight from somebody, he probably might talk about it.
All righty. Dr. Matt Hanka will be talking to you throughout the evening. Again, President Trump at a fundraiser and a round table right now at the Old National Events Plaza. He is expected to start speaking at Ford Center at approximately, underline the word approximately, about 7:25 tonight. And the crowd has been standing and waiting, and this is part of the process, awaiting that candidate. We've had warm-up speeches from Congressman Rushan and Governor Holcomb, and the president scheduled to speak in about an hour. You're watching Eyewitness News at 6 from your local election headquarters.